Use the thing. See, why would I play Con when I can play Con in Destiny? This is the real final shape. Alright, okay, let's hear it. I know, and you know, that right now you want to go in the comments and make an AC130 reference. It's inevitable, let's just get it over with. Now that we have that out of our system, let's move on with today's build. So this build is quite literally an AC130 build. You float in the sky forever, and you rain down rockets and nukes upon your enemies. There's a fair joke in there somewhere from Overwatch, but let's move on. So the build, in general, is really good in anything that has lots of ad density in content. So things like Nightfalls, Onslaught, maybe some Lost Sectors where there's tons of enemies. Anything like that, this build will excel at. One of the core main reasons for that is the heavy weapon we're using in this build, which is Eyes of Tomorrow. This is the exotic rocket launcher that you can get from the Deepstone Crypt raid, and by the way, the week of this video coming out, Deepstone Crypt is going to be the weekly featured raid, which means you can go farm Eyes of Tomorrow literally right now. Now, why are you using Eyes of Tomorrow? What makes it so good for this particular build? Well, the weapon perk, Adaptive Ordnance, states, defeating 4 or more combatants in a single volley increases the damage of the next volley and refunds ammunition. In simple terms, if you get 4 kills with your shot, then you get refunded your ammo. Essentially, you have infinite ammo as long as there are waves of enemies to keep shooting at. And its intrinsic trait is Eyes on All, which is this weapon is capable of tracking and firing at multiple targets simultaneously. So when I said you're just going to float forever and just rain nukes nonstop on enemies, it's literally just nonstop until all the enemies are gone. So we have our primary source of destruction. How do we get there though? Enter a 2-piece combo of using heat rises on solar warlocks and also utilizing either Mountaintop or the new exotic GL from this season, Alathonim, or is it Alathonim? Anyway, you know what I mean. The primary slot exotic GL from this season. This is because we're going to be utilizing the rocket jumping strategy. The first thing you're going to want to do is activate heat rises. By holding your grenade button, you will then consume your grenade and gain heat rises. Now, at this point, you can jump up in the air and just glide until your timer runs out and float in the air the whole time, as long as you don't, cancel your jump or anything like that. Additionally, while you're airborne, final blows increase the duration of heat rises and grant you melee energy. So while you're in the air, your initial timer is going to be, 10 seconds, whatever it is, and then, assuming you get your volleys off, it'll then skyrocket up to 25 seconds to the point of where you're just going to be kind of floating there waiting for the next wave of ats to spawn to fire another rocket at. Once you have activated heat rising, you're going to perform your rocket jump with either your Mountaintop or your Alathonim. Just look down at the ground, fire, and utilize your jump to get high up in the sky, and then stay there. Once you are up there, make sure you're not wiggling around or trying to just glide at all, because if you do, you'll start descending. And speaking of descending, let's talk about the class ability for this. Once you've massacred everything in your sight, you can try to utilize Phoenix Dive, both for a cool, flashy way to just fall down faster, but also it does activate Cure plus Restoration, and you can utilize this to your advantage. For the other abilities, we have Celestial Fire, because we're 80,000 feet in the sky, and that can reach, unlike Snap, which obviously will not. And in our grenade, you can go with a couple different things here. One, you can stick to Healing Grenade in the event that you actually have to use your Healing Grenade to survive at a bad spot. If not that, you could go for an offensive approach for something like Firebolt Grenade, because it has the lowest cooldown, the base cooldown, of any solar grenade that Warlocks have at 1 minute and 4 seconds. The second best is Fusion Grenades. They have a bit more kick in terms of damage and can technically ignite enemies, and they're only 9 seconds further from that cooldown at 113, so you could utilize that instead. As for the other aspect in this build besides Heat Rises, you could go with either of the other aspects. You could go with Icarus Dash, or you could go with Touch of Flame or Helion. It just kind of depends on personal preference. I like Icarus Dash, others might want Helion, for example. As for the fragments, I'll get to them in a second. I just want to talk about what exotic armor piece you should wear, because this build doesn't really have anything that needs to be put on. And before you ask, no, you do not need Wings of Sacred Dawn for this build. Heat Rises can actually hard carry by itself and does not require Sacred Dawn at all. The first recommendation is going to be something that can improve your Eyes of Tomorrow damage, and that's going to be Mantle of Battle Harmony. For those that are unaware of what this exotic chest piece does, it states that final blows with this weapon, matching your equipped super, so in this case, Well and Eyes, you grant bonus super energy each time you get a kill. Also, when your super is full, you instead gain a temporary bonus to your weapon damage of that type. So in this case, you just hold your well and you don't use it, you go in the sky with Heat Rises, and you shoot up Eyes of Tomorrow, and you get bonus damage for it in that manner. The next recommendation is Sunbracers. Now, let me explain, because this might not make sense at first. So, initially, obviously, you don't want to actually use your grenades, but in some cases, maybe when you use Heat Rises, something went wrong, and you lost your grenade, and you can't go in the sky, and you want to get it back instantly, you can rock Sunbracers with solar grenades. Then, you can use a solar melee to kill a target, which grants you unlimited solar grenades for 5 seconds. So, you can throw like 4 solar grenades, and then keep the 5th one for when you want to activate Heat Rises and redo your loop. You could also run Starfire Protocol for similar reasons to Sunbracers, but in this case, it actually benefits you in 2 ways. Not only do you get a second grenade charge for said fusion grenades with a low cooldown, but you can throw 1 grenade for damage and still have a second grenade in your back pocket for activating Heat Rises. And additionally, again, if something went wrong, you can activate your Rift and then start damaging enemies in your Rift to get your grenade energy back. So yeah, those are some of the suggestions. You could use whatever you like. You could even use Wings of Sacred Dawn if you feel like it. That's just my personal 2 cents. Now, as for fragments, we've got 4 of them. We're going to go from left to right, with the first one being Ember of Benevolence. Applying Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to allies grants increased grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration for a short duration. So, with our Phoenix Dive, not only can you dive down on your own to get Cure and Resto, but you can also utilize it to do the same thing to your teammates, which then activates Benevolence, which gives you a 400% increase to regenning your abilities back. The second fragment is going to be Ember of Imperium. Solar weapon, kills, or ability final blows extend the duration of Restoration and Radiance. If you want to keep your Resto up, just keep firing them rockets. Then we have Ember of Solace. Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have an increased duration. So it's just, instead of having this ability for 5 seconds, you now have it for 12 seconds, which is a big increase in the grand scheme of things. And then lastly, we have Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against command to make you and nearby allies radiant. Now let's talk about mods. I'm just going to tell you guys some mods that I think will be helpful for this build. Nothing too crazy, but just some suggestions. So in the helmet, there really isn't anything that can help you specifically for this kind of build, so you can put in whatever you want: heavy ammo finder, radiant light, etc. In your gloves, the best mod I think to run in this build is at least 2 copies of Impact Induction, which say that causing damage with a powered melee reduces your grenade cooldown. So anytime that you use your Celestial Fire, you will have a cooldown reduction on your grenade. For your chest, nothing really special. Either run Resist for DR or run Solar Reserve mods for your Eyes of Tomorrow. In your boots, this is where I think it's very helpful to know that you should run 1 copy of Solar Weapon Search just to increase the damage of your Eyes of Tomorrow, but the other 2 slots I think should go to regen mods. The first one is Innervation, which states reduces your grenade cooldown each time that you pick up an Orb of Power, and you can make tons of orbs in content with lots of ads very, very easily. Like, for example, you wear Solar Siphon, so that every time that you fire Eyes of Tomorrow and kill a pack of enemies, you make an orb out of that. Or, if you run something like an Aerial Denial GL in your energy slot, such as Velocity Baton, and you make a bunch of orbs with Attrition Orbs, then you can use those to feed into your cooldown for your grenade. And the last mod is Absolution for similar reasons. It reduces all ability cooldowns each time that you pick up an Orb of Power. And to tie into that, let's talk about the class item. The first mod I want to mention is Powerful Attraction. When you do end up using your Phoenix Dive, you can utilize Powerful Attraction to both dive for your ability regen on your Benevolence, but also Powerful Attraction will pick up orbs for you in the nearby area to help you with the mods in your boots as well. And the other 2 suggestions I have are Bomber, which reduces your grenade cooldown when you're using your class ability, and then Special Finisher, which would be helpful in situations where you might not have Mountaintop or Alathanum ammo to go into the sky with. That is the build in a nutshell. As always, I will have a dim link down below in the description for people that want to try out this build for themselves. But yeah, I think I like this build just for the sheer simplicity of it. You don't need to have a mandatory exotic armor piece. You don't need to have a mandatory energy slot weapon. You just rock Eyes and then a rocket jumping GL, and your throw weapon could be whatever you'd like. And you just go into Onslaught or GMs or whatever you want to run and jump in the sky and you just delete everything. But that's the build. Hopefully you enjoyed the video or the build, and if you did, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to comment, which I think for this video you probably do, but you could leave AC130 as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.